It happened in Vermont during the winter of 2018. I was living alone in a small 2-bedroom cabin just outside Montpelier. It wasn't anything fancy, just me, some books, a wood stove, and silence. I had moved out there after a rough breakup, thinking isolation would help me clear my head. For the most part, it did. Until one night changed everything. Snow had been falling all evening. Thick flakes, steady and quiet. I had this habit of taking a short walk before bed. Just around the perimeter of the property, flashlight in hand, bundled up in 2 jackets. That night was no different. It was about 11 p.m., and the woods were dead silent. Even the usual distant howling of coyotes was missing. I remember thinking how beautiful everything looked, like a Christmas postcard. When I got back inside, I locked the door behind me and tossed another log into the stove. I didn't have a TV, so I usually read for a while in bed. I was maybe 15 minutes into a chapter when I saw a flash of blue light through the bedroom window. It wasn't lightning. It was too fast, too directed, like someone sweeping a flashlight. I turned off my bedside lamp and waited. No sound, no more light, just silence. A few minutes passed and I started to convince myself it was probably a reflection from a snowplow down the hill. I went back to reading. Then it flashed again. Closer this time. Same sharp blue glow. Not a plow, not headlights. Someone was out there. I grabbed my own flashlight and quietly moved to the front door. I didn't open it. I just listened. Nothing, not even the crunch of snow. But I felt something, like the air had shifted, like someone was watching the house. I turned off all the lights, sat in the dark for a while, waiting to see if it would happen again. But it didn't. I eventually dozed off on the couch with my jacket still on. Around 3:30 a.m., I woke up to a strange sound, not loud, almost like someone tapping on glass. My bedroom window. Then the front door handle rattled, just once. I froze. My heart was hammering in my chest. I didn't even breathe. There was a soft scraping noise at the door, like metal against wood. I grabbed the fire poker and stood beside the door, not sure what to do. Call the cops? I had no cell signal and no landline. I was on my own. Then, from the side of the cabin, another light flickered. Not blue this time, white, faint. Someone had circled around. They were testing windows, one by one. I heard the creak of snow under boots. A long pause. Then they tried the back door. Now I was panicking. There was no reason anyone should be out here this late. I locked all the doors, but they were old, wooden frames, easy to break if someone really wanted in. I backed into the bedroom and shoved my dresser against the door. I sat in the corner staring at the window, gripping the poker like it would actually help. The flashlight beam passed by the window again, this time slower, like it was scanning. Then it clicked off. Silence again. Minutes crawled by. Nothing. I must have fallen asleep again somehow because the next thing I remember was sunlight through the window. The cabin was freezing. I checked all the doors, still locked. No footprints around the house, at least none that hadn't already been covered by fresh snow. But one thing was different. There was something hanging from a tree about 20 feet from the back door. A blue flashlight, swinging slightly, even though there was no wind, tied to a low branch with what looked like a shoelace. It wasn't mine. I took it down and examined it. The batteries were missing. It was just the shell, but it smelled faintly of gasoline. I dropped it and backed away. That afternoon, I drove into town and stayed with a friend for 3 days. When I returned, the flashlight was gone, but wedged between my front door and the frame was a small piece of cardboard. Just one word written on it in blocky black marker. Try again. I moved out by the end of that week. Never found out who it was. Never saw them again. But I can't help wondering, what if I had opened the door that night? It was June 2022 in a quiet suburb outside Flagstaff, Arizona. I had rented a small ranch house at the edge of town, thinking the wide-open desert air would be a break from my cramped Phoenix apartment. The place sat on a half-acre lot with no close neighbors. I liked that at first. No traffic, No barking dogs, just cicadas at dusk and a sky full of stars. The landlord mentioned a partial crawl space beneath the living room, left over from an old heating system that had been removed years earlier. I barely listened. I figured it was nothing but pipes and dust. The first 2 weeks were peaceful. I stocked the fridge, set up my work laptop, arranged a few pieces of furniture, and ran every morning before sunrise. One afternoon, UPS dropped off a motion sensor camera kit I had ordered on impulse. I installed 3 tiny cameras, one above the front door, one on the back porch, one facing the driveway. They linked to an app on my phone. I thought of it as a tech toy, not real security. The first alert came on a Tuesday, just after 2 a.m. A soft ding on my phone woke me. Camera 3 had detected movement near the driveway. I rolled over, half asleep, tapped the clip, and saw nothing but empty asphalt and a single moth fluttering across the lens. I shrugged and went back to sleep. 2 nights later, the same alert chimed, same time, same camera. Again, the clip looked empty, but this time the moth was gone. I chalked it up to desert dust or a glitch. I muted the notifications for the rest of the night. Friday rolled in hot and slow. Around 9 p.m., I made coffee and started a late work project. The house felt stuffy, so I cracked a few windows. Midnight passed. I heard a faint clunk somewhere under the floor. I paused, listened, decided it was the old ducts settling in the cool air. Another hour slipped by. My screen glowed in the dark living room while the rest of the house stayed unlit. Then came a new sound, a hollow scrape, as if wood dragged across dirt. It came from directly beneath my feet. I froze, ears straining. Silence settled again. My pulse slowed, and I told myself the crawl space was full of raccoons or stray cats. I saved my work, shut the laptop, and headed for the bedroom. The hallway lights stayed off. The only illumination was my phone screen. As I neared the bedroom door, the motion app pinged. Camera 1, front door. I tapped the thumbnail. My heart jolted. A tall figure stood on the porch, backlit by the dim porch light. No face, no details, just a silhouette holding something long and thin. The feed lasted 3 seconds before cutting to black. I stared, confused. Then the app refreshed. All cameras offline. Network error. My breath caught in my throat. I flicked on the hall light. A surge of static popped from a vent near the floor, then died. The house went dead quiet. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under the bed and crept to the front window. I pulled the curtain an inch. The porch looked empty. The light was still on. No footsteps in the gravel driveway. Nothing. I tried the front doorknob to make sure it remained locked. It clicked tight. I backed away and reached for the phone to call the sheriff, but remembered the area's spotty cell service. 1 bar, maybe. I decided to hold off and see if the cameras would reconnect. That was when the living room floor vibrated. Not an earthquake shake, just a steady thud from below. Rhythmic, deliberate. It moved from one end of the room to the other, like someone crawling beneath the boards. I pictured dusty raccoons, but the weight felt heavier. I stepped toward the kitchen to grab the flashlight, and 2 boards behind me creaked. I spun, bat raised, expecting to see someone in the room. Nothing there. The vibration resumed, heading toward the bedroom area. I followed, heart hammering. At the bedroom door, the noise stopped. I opened the door slowly. Moonlight from the window pooled on the carpet. The bed looked untouched. I edged inside. A sudden cold draft hit my legs. I shone the flashlight downward. The bedroom vent grill near the floor was gone, lying on the carpet. Dark air seeped out of the duct opening. I crouched, holding the bat with one hand, flashlight with the other, and aimed the beam into the gap. The space led into blackness under the floor. Far in the darkness, 2 tiny reflections glinted. Eyes. They vanished an instant later with a soft rustle. I fell back, dropped the grill over the hole, and pushed the nightstand against it. My hands shook. This was no raccoon. I bolted to the garage to find the breaker box, planning to flood the crawl space with light. As I crossed the living room, The thuds resumed, now beneath the couch. The couch legs lifted a fraction. I ran faster. The garage door squealed when I yanked it. Inside, the breaker box hung on the far wall. I flipped every switch off, then on. The house lights dazzled back to life, but the motion app still read offline. Dead network. At that moment, the garage door behind me slammed shut. I whirled and saw a second vent cover on the concrete, as if thrown from underneath. A figure unfolded from the crawl opening in the garage wall. Thin, filthy coveralls, face hidden by a burlap sack mask with 2 eye holes. It crawled out, limbs jerking like a marionette. I lifted the bat, but my arms felt rubbery. The masked intruder rose, almost my height, holding a crowbar. It cocked its head, silent. No breathing sound. I backed toward the interior door, bat raised. The figure didn't chase. It turned its head toward the house as if listening. From the kitchen, a crash erupted. Another intruder had surfaced. Then a third thump from the bedroom. They had been under the floor the whole time, waiting. I realized the cameras weren't glitched. Someone had cut the power to the router from below. My stomach dropped. The burlap-masked stranger stepped forward. I swung the bat. It blocked with the crowbar, metal ringing, the shock numbing my wrist. I swung again, connecting with its shoulder. It barely reacted. I darted past, flung open the interior door and sprinted down the hallway. The living room couch was overturned, vent covers strewn like traps. 2 masked shapes emerged from the floor voids, crawling spider-like onto the boards. Their masks were stitched with crude smiles. They circled, herding me toward the back door. I swung wildly, batting one in the skull. The mask twisted but didn't fall. The attacker stumbled yet stayed silent. No grunt of pain. The other lunged low, grabbing my ankle. I kicked free and dove for the coat closet where I kept a flare gun from hiking trips. I fumbled through coats, found the gun, snapped it open, and jammed in a shell. The lead invader stepped forward, crowbar raised. I fired. A blinding red flare blasted into its chest, knocking it back. Sparks rained on the hardwood, smoke curling. The figure flailed, burlap catching fire, but still no scream. The other 2 hesitated. I seized the moment, crashed through the back door, and sprinted into the yard. Snow-capped San Francisco peaks glowed under moonlight beyond the fence. I vaulted the fence, tore across the neighbor's yard, and didn't stop until I hit the main road and flagged a passing truck. The driver took one look at my bloody, soot-streaked face and drove me straight to the sheriff's station. Deputies searched the house at dawn. They found the crawl space full of trash bags, canned food, and bedrolls. Someone had lived under my floor for days, maybe weeks. No bodies, but charred burlap scraps and a melted crowbar lay near the living room vent. The sheriff said transients sometimes hide in crawl spaces during winter, but nobody could explain the masks, the silence, or how 3 adults moved in and out without tracks in the desert dust. They never found them. The landlord let me break the lease. I left Arizona within 48 hours. Sometimes at night I wake to the faint sound of wood scraping dirt, and I wonder if those burlap faces ever crawled into someone else's floor, waiting for the perfect quiet house. It was August 2023 in a quiet cul-de-sac on the outskirts of Sarasota, Florida, when I moved into a recently flipped bungalow that still smelled of fresh paint. I worked night shifts at a small trauma clinic downtown, so my schedule was odd: sleep at noon, dinner near dawn. The house had a modern smart home panel controlling lights, locks, and thermostat. The realtor bragged about how everything could run from an app. I set it up on my phone, clicked through the tutorials, and forgot about it. My first week passed without incident except for one small glitch. Every morning around 6 a.m., just as I returned from work, the hallway lights flicked on for 2 seconds, then off. I blamed it on sunrise mode in the presets and disabled all scheduling. The next day, the lights still pulsed. I shrugged it off. Late one Sunday, I stopped at a gas station and grabbed groceries. When I reached my driveway, the porch light was glowing a steady green instead of the normal white. The app showed no color option for that bulb. I stood there, keys in hand, staring at the door. Inside, the thermostat kicked to 65 on its own. Cold air seeped through the mail slot. I unlocked the deadbolt, stepped in, and felt a chill slice through my sweat-soaked scrubs. My phone buzzed. An alert popped up. Front door opened by guest mode. I had never created a guest mode. I toggled the panel to disarm the system, then walked every room, cabinet, and closet. Nothing looked touched. Exhaustion won. I crashed on the couch, intending to nap before double-checking the wiring later. At 2 p.m., an alarm tone blared from the ceiling speaker. 3 beeps, then silence. I jerked upright. The panel logged interior motion detected, living room. I was in the living room, yet it claimed movement before I sat up. I scanned the space. Curtains swayed even though the air vents were idle. I decided the smart hub was defective, emailed the installer, and headed for the shower. Steam fogged the mirror. I heard a faint crackle from the bathroom vent, like a radio tuned between stations. A low male voice bled through the static, impossible to parse. I shut off the water, listened hard, and the sound faded. I climbed into bed later. Phone on the pillow, app open. Just before sleep, a push notification lit the screen. Garage door opened. I didn't own a garage. The house had only a carport. I sat up, heart racing. Another notification stacked. Basement hatch closed. The bungalow had no basement. I opened the event log. Time stamped in real time described doors that did not exist. I cycled through camera feeds. The one pointed at the backyard loaded first, nothing but darkness and swaying palms, then a flicker. A black rectangle slid across the center as if something passed inches from the lens. The image pixelated, then cleared. The yard was empty. I called my coworker Drew, a tech hobbyist. He offered to swing by before my shift. He arrived with a network scanner and laptop. We killed power to the router, disconnected the smart hub, and hard reset every sensor. Drew's scanner showed a mystery device pinging the hub over Bluetooth low energy, broadcasting as maintenance access. He said it looked like an installer beacon left during renovation, maybe forgotten. He blacklisted the address, confident the ghost alerts would stop. I thanked him, drove to work, pulled a 12-hour shift, and returned Monday morning drained but calm. The porch light was white again. The hallway lights stayed dark. I exhaled, kicked off shoes, poured cereal, and flopped onto the couch. While chewing, I noticed an envelope tucked under the TV stand. No stamp, just my name in block letters. Inside lay a cheap plastic key card labeled Maintenance and a note. Use this door tonight. No door specified. My stomach twisted. I tossed the card in a drawer, grabbed spare blankets, and decided to sleep at Drew's apartment after work. Around midnight, the clinic hit a lull. I stepped into the break room and checked my phone. The smart home app, though disconnected, had pushed a critical alert. Attic hatch opened by maintenance mode. The house had no attic hatch either. I showed Drew, who frowned and swore the hub was offline. He suggested we drive over during lunch. We got there close to 2 a.m. The street was silent, moonlight bouncing off parked cars. My porch light glowed green again. Drew held up a spectrum analyzer. An unknown Bluetooth signal saturated the immediate area. We crept toward the front door. Something scuttled across the roof tiles. We paused, looked up, saw nothing. Drew held the analyzer high. The signal peaked above us. He whispered that the transmitter had to be on the roof. I unlocked the door. Cold air poured out as if the AC had run non-stop. The living room lights flicked on, then off. A recorded voice filled the hallway speaker. Use this door, or we'll use yours. The tone was flat, machine-generated. A door slammed deeper inside. Drew whispered, "Back exit, now." We crossed the kitchen. Cabinet doors hung open. The fridge rattled on maximum cooling. The back door stood ajar, but a chain latch held it half open. A metal scraping echoed from the guest bedroom. Drew yanked the chain free. We burst onto the patio. The analyzer beeped wildly, signal now behind us. The bedroom window slid up. A silhouette climbed through. Tall, wearing coveralls and a night vision headset, antennas sprouting from a backpack unit. The figure held a crowbar with a thin RFID reader taped to the handle. Drew shouted and swung a flashlight. The intruder paused, turned, and another shape climbed out behind him. Same outfit, silent. They advanced. I grabbed Drew's arm and sprinted for the side gate. The first invader hissed a command into a throat mic. Porch lights flared green to red. A klaxon siren erupted from the roof speaker, my speaker, blasting static pulses that rattled my teeth. We cleared the gate, cut through a neighbor's yard, and didn't stop until we reached Drew's idling car. Tires squealed down the block behind us, my SUV. They had keyless entry spoofers in the pack. We hit the sheriff's office in 5 minutes. Deputies swarmed the neighborhood but found the bungalow empty. Inside, every lock cycled open and closed in a loop, screens flashing maintenance mode. The back bedroom floor was pried up, revealing a square pit where a contractor once planned a crawl space. In that pit, deputies found folding cots, water bottles, and Wi-Fi repeaters wired into the power line. The men had been camping beneath my room, feeding off my electricity, mapping the house, and waiting until the networks trusted their beacons. The sheriff figured they were thieves targeting new smart homes, break in once, plant hardware, return days later when schedules were set, then harvest valuables unnoticed. Except they had escalated. They wanted occupants present, maybe for codes to bank apps or worse. My case wasn't the first. 2 other houses, 3 counties over, reported identical alerts. Maintenance mode, green porch lights, missing cars. Nobody caught the crew. I never retrieved the SUV, it vanished. I moved states, ditched all smart devices, and keep locks mechanical. Sometimes in hotel rooms, when the door sensor clicks as housekeeping enters, I feel that cold rush again, expecting a green light and a voice saying, "Use this door or we'll use yours." Locked doors feel different after these stories. Home is only safe until someone decides it isn't. If tonight's tales made you double-check the windows, tap like, share this with a friend who leaves their porch light off, smash subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another chill down your spine.